Today we are going to be going over Unit 8, Lesson 2. So we are going to be working on drawing and measuring angles. Yesterday we talked about acute and obtuse angles and right angles and the different types of lines. So I'm going to be using all those vocab words today. Alright, so first we need to learn about all the different parts of an angle. So an angle is basically from one ray to the other. So they're going to meet together at a point, which we're going to call the vertex, which is right here. You see they're going to be one ray right here and one ray right here. So a degree is the distance in between these two. Alright, so this angle right here is showing the measure of 1 degree. You can tell it's pretty small. So if I look here, this one is 5 degrees. So basically, this is saying that this can fit 1 degrees in it. Alright, so if we keep going down, we look here, these are our 3 benchmarks, as you would call them, our benchmark angles that we will usually compare them to. So this right here is called a right angle. You've probably heard of this before, but you need to know how much it measures, which is 90 degrees. So if you look here, this little symbol right here is saying that it's 90 degrees or a right angle. So how do we know that it is 90 degrees? Well, they use a protractor, or they can just say that this is a quarter of a circle. So if you split this circle into 4 pieces, one like this, and you just continue this line over here, and you continue this line over here, you split it into 4 pieces. Well, we know that an entire circle like this right here is 360 degrees if I went all the way around. So it's a complete circle, it's 360 degrees. And if I take a quarter of that, or did 360 times 1/4, I would end up with 90 degrees. For half of a circle, which is called a straight angle or a straight line, you'll hear it both ways, it's 180 degrees. So that's half of one circle. Or if I did 360 times 1/2, I would get 180 degrees. Now, as you can notice, this little thing right here, and this one, they all mean degree. So that is our little symbol that we will use anytime we are talking about a degree of an angle. So you will have to write it that way. So if you can see right here, this one said 5 times 1 degree. You'd get 5 degrees. Now, how do we measure these angles without seeing that it is a 90-degree angle or seeing that it is a straight angle or it's a full circle? We use something called a protractor. A protractor, kind of like a ruler, is going to measure something. So a ruler is going to measure the length. And if you can even see right here is a protractor. Right here is a ruler. It's going to measure the length. But a protractor is going to measure the distance between one ray and the other. So it's going to be measuring our angle. So if you look right here at our angle, we're going to name it angle ABC. Alright, this middle one, B, is always going to be our vertex. That is where we're going to start our protractor. When we start our protractor, we're going to always put it right on the vertex. You see this little circle? There's actually a hole on a protractor. You're going to stick it right on there, and you're going to line it up. So you're going to put it right there, and then you need to line up one line, it does not matter which one, with the other line. So you can see this straight line right here, right? You're going to line that up straight, make sure it's nice and straight with the other line. Okay, so after you line it up, you have to read the other angle. So this is just how we're going to set up. Now this line right here is what's going to tell us what degree it actually is. So if you notice, there are 2 sets of numbers here. There's right here, it goes 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, it goes all the way to 180. So if you see, if I continue this line right here, that'd be a straight line or 180 degrees. Okay, so if I look at the other line, look at this one that goes 0, 10, 20, 30, all the way 10s, all the way to 180 again. So they're actually the opposite. So what these are is each side, if you see that there's little tick marks, each tick mark is 1 degree. Alright, so it's very important that when you're doing this, you are very precise at how you line it up. Because if you line it up wrong, your measurement is going to be wrong. So you always measure it here. You always make sure this is exactly straight. Now, when you read it, this is where knowing if you have an acute angle or an obtuse angle is what's going to tell you which set of numbers to read. All right, so this one's pretty simple because it's going straight up and there's only one number there, which is 90 degrees. All right, but let's go down and look at these ones right here. So, if you see this one, let's make it so you can see our protractor. This angle right here, if I lined up a protractor with this one, you would have to be able to tell me which set of numbers am I going to use. Am I going to use these sets or am I going to use these sets? Well, I'm going to say this is an acute angle, so I already know an acute angle means that it's anywhere in between 0 degrees and 89 degrees. So I would be using this bottom set of numbers right here if I lined it up, because I know it is less than 90 degrees. So if you look at these top numbers, those would all be saying that they are more than 90 degrees. That would be saying I have an obtuse angle. This is not an obtuse angle. This is an acute angle. Now this line right here, if I lined it up, all right, so if I lined up this other one right here, and I put it up here, I'm just going to look. I have to first tell myself, is this obtuse or is it acute? Well, I'm going to tell myself, this one's obtuse because it looks like it's bigger than 90 degrees. So when I measure it, I know it's going to be anywhere between 91 degrees and 180 degrees on my protractor. So when I'm looking on there, I know that I'm going to be using the bigger set of numbers. All right, so let's go ahead and practice this. All right, so here's a picture of a protractor. It's going to have both sets of numbers, and it's nice and big for you so you can actually see it. So I'm actually just going to draw some angles on here to kind of help us out so we can just try to see how to measure them before you come in tomorrow, because we're going to work on measuring them tomorrow. All right, so here we go. I'm just going to start right here. I'm just going to draw an angle. So I'm going to put my point right here. Alright, well I actually changed protractors because the other one was a circle one and I didn't realize it. So here we go with our protractor. I lined up, I put a dot there, I drew a straight line, and then I just drew a line. It's not super straight, but I don't have a ruler on here. So when I draw it like this and I'm going nice and straight, I'm looking here, and then I have to kind of keep on looking. There's two ways you can do this. When you're doing it in your book, you'll use a ruler and continue your line and follow it straight. If I kept following this straight, I'm going to come up here to right here. Alright, so I'm going to have right here. Alright, so when I hit right here, and I continued my line, if my line is right here, I'm going to have either 70 or 110. So I have to figure out which number am I going to use. Well, I have to ask myself, is this acute or obtuse? Well, this line is going to be obtuse. So I'm going to use a measure of 110 degrees. So this right here is going to be 110 degrees of this line. Alright, so here's our second line. Alright, so looking at this other line, we need to look and measure it, figure out which one it is. So if I continue this line, it's going to go straight up about right here. Alright, so then I need to figure out, is this an acute angle or an obtuse angle? Well, I'm going to look at it, and right here is our 90 degree, and ours is going to be less than that. So this is going to be acute. So I know I'm going to use a smaller number. So this one's not right at a number. This one's in between two numbers. So this is in between the 60 and the 70. So just like a ruler or just like a number line, I'm going to count. I'm going to say this is 60, this is 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67. So this one is about 67 degrees. Alright, so tomorrow we're going to practice measuring these, and we're going to practice drawing them. So you'll have an actual protractor tomorrow for you to do this to help you out. So tomorrow, come prepared with the answer to this question. How do I know what number I'm using to measure? How do I know which one I am using to measure? Because I have this two lines. You need to be able to tell me which numbers and how do I know which numbers I use. Alright, I will see you tomorrow. Bye.